Hey everyone. Today we're talking with Ahamed Bermudez. Ahmed is a high school student who's also a member of the Youth Advisory Council and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. He's a leader in the Latino community in Los Angeles, and he's got a lot to say. Enjoy this interview. Ahmed, thank you for talking with us today. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for this opportunity and considering me for this portion your of the app. So yeah, I really appreciate this opportunity.
Of course, man. No, the opportunity is all ours. The whole point of this series is to be talking to people about their experiences in life based on the issues that affect their lives the most. And I think that you have many touch points that are valuable for people to hear about, which is why, we're stoked to be elevating that voice. And I think you have a lot to say, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of people. So I'm excited to get started.
I'm excited too.
Cool. Awesome. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your backstory? You are a young leader in LA. You're a high school student, and you've already accomplished more than I was accomplishing when I was a high school student. And that story may be the same for others. So can you walk us through a little bit of Ahmed's backstory?
Yeah. So I was born here and grew up in LA. I've always cared about my academics, but right before I started high school, though, my mother she suffered a very severe car accident, and which basically left her disabled for life. And ever since then, she lost her job. The income of our house was getting more difficult on how we were going to start paying rent and bills, and we were just living off her social security benefits. And ever since then, that was in the beginning of my high school career. And it was such a low amount of money that, it made me think of like, does the government really think that that's enough to live off? And that's when like my passion for public policy, to be specific, grew. And that's when I started to get more involved in programs, going out of my own way and participating in things such as the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, and the Youth Advisory Council with my local representative. And yeah, it all started with my mom's accident, and that's where my passion grew to make a change in my community. And not only that, but also, just growing up in the community I live in, you see a lot of people suffering, and that's one of the main reasons on why I want to pursue what I want to pursue.
What is that community? What does that look like? And where is it specifically?
Yeah, so I live in, to be specific, the Pico Union area of Los Angeles. It's close to downtown LA. The majority of the population here are Latinx people. It's, the schools here, even if it's a elementary, middle school, high school, we're all under-resourced schools compared to other schools in better communities. It's very difficult to get an opportunity like this, for example, to become more aware, because we're not used to getting resources or the knowledge because of the lack of resources in our schools. It gets difficult from the start. So once we start growing, it's just like it's that knowledge or that empowerment to want to make a change. It becomes very difficult to want to continue going.
Is it something that you don't know unless you're exposed to it? Like, do most people your age in your community understand what is lacking? Or does that just feel like, no, this is baseline, this is how it is? Like, I'm curious to that.
Yeah, well, it feels normal because that's what we grow up with, where that's what we're used to. That's what, generations of our families are used to. People get discouraged at some point in their life, some as early in high school, and, drop out. And then that it's like a cycle that keeps going on and just makes it difficult for students to, pursue higher education or just want to do something better with their life.
Yeah, so it's perpetuated.
Yeah.
Going back quickly to your mother's accident, and by the way, I'm sorry to hear that. I can only
Thank
imagine what that was like. But it does sound like you found a way to find optimism and empowerment from that. What was it like prior to that? Were you exposed to policy and were you exposed to community involvement, or did that rise out of tragedy?
Yeah, well, I had no experience in it. Like I said, it was literally right before my freshman year in high school. Um, I was very unaware about all these opportunities, how, this whole system works. I was completely, I had no idea how it worked. And yeah, her accidents would really push me to go out of my own way and, do my own research. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do they teach civics, by the way? Because I know this
Mm,
is kind of a hit or miss thing. Do you get that?
no, they don't.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's unfortunately been a lot of people we talk to across the nation. It's the same thing. It's just they don't, no one really understands how the government works. It's hard
yeah.
to empower yourself in your community when you don't even understand the system that you are a part of. So that's frustrating. You mentioned the Youth Advisory Council and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. Can you
Hmm.
speak to what those organizations are, how you got involved, and what type of work you're doing?
Yeah, so the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, I was introduced to it by a high school counselor. And it's basically this 1 week long program at Washington, D.C. for young Latino, Latina, Latinx leaders. Um, and it's pretty much a week where it's an intense week. It sounds like such a short amount of time, but it's an intense week where we're learning about the federal government. We're speaking to um, people of color that are in office. Um, we're surrounded by other Latino students like myself from all across the nation. So there was people from California, Texas, Florida, Georgia. It was so we get to learn about other Latino views from a different place in America. So we get to really bounce off each other's ideas, um, and yeah.
Yeah. And I also know, and I don't want to make any mistakes, that like the Latino, Latinx, Latina community is not
Mhm.
a monolith, and is not all liberal. It is not all conservative. I think
Yeah.
it's a mix of varied cultures. So I
Mhm.
don't want to give that that misconception that this is just one group,
Yeah.
which it is often painted as.
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to give you the opportunity to kind of dispel that and to maybe break that out a little bit. Like, let's talk about your peers, right? Do you have conservative friends? Do you have liberal friends? What does that look like from the inside?
Yeah. Well, I personally haven't been exposed to people who are conservative or lean more to the right. We all have everyone like that's around my age or adults that I live in my community, which are the people that I talk to the most. We all face the same struggles, so we all have like the same political beliefs or just beliefs in general, and so we all do hold like this like standpoint on being a liberal or a Democrat. But on the media, I watch like other interviews from, I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of Vox.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I that was like one of the first times I noticed that there was like conservative Latinos, because I saw this interview of like conservative and liberal Latinos. And I was very surprised to see that, because like I said, I haven't been exposed to it in person. um but I do respectfully I respect their views. And it's just about having like a civilized conversation instead of just arguing with one another.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole mission of our company too.
Yeah.
Finding common allies across the board is important. I think it's vital for democracy as a whole.
Yeah.
Take parties out of it. We all have to learn how to have conversations. I think we all have family members who lean one way or another.
Yeah.
You can't just disown people. You need to figure out where that common ground is and how to find compromise where you can and understanding where you can't. So I'm happy to hear you say that. And I think if you keep going down the path that you're going, you're going to probably find more conservatives and liberals together. both agreeing and disagreeing. So it's definitely good to kind of always get outside as much as you can of, you know, what is in your backyard sometimes
Yeah.
to understand that even better. So I'm glad to hear that conversation is at the forefront of that for you. Um, it, Immigration is obviously a big issue in this country. You know, immigration reform, I think, is tossed around every 4 years, and you know, someone takes a stab at it, it doesn't go anywhere, and I
Yeah.
feel like the problem gets perpetuated, and you know, and to some extent, you know, now I think it's at that boiling point. So, from a community that is directly affected by immigration policy, um, what is that like for you? Do you have, you know, what are your opinions on that?
Yeah, well, immigration is such a big issue, especially in a state like California, where the population of um, immigrants is really big. Um, I think there's so much work to needs to be done in order to better this situation. Um, you know, I guess I hate to see when people don't want to support, you know, Latinos who are immigrants, because you know we are you know, working class people, and we're just trying to survive. And you know, such when people are working without like papers, or they're working in like some type of illegal way, you know, that's like their only option. And when people say that like it's a crime to come to the US by crossing the border illegally, it's just like, where is that sympathy for just wanting another person to want to live a better life? You know,
Mm-hmm.
most of these people do come from third world countries, and or where they come from they come from dangerous communities, and you know, they're just trying to live a better life. So I wish people who don't agree with people coming to the US illegally, I just wish they had like a little bit of more sympathy, or you know, try to create or just support a way into making this situation a little less difficult, and yeah, just bettering the situation.
One more point on that. Do you feel othered? Do you feel like you have been stripped of your own humanity? Speaking on behalf of yourself, and then speaking on behalf of your community.
Yeah, well, you know, these people who are coming to this country, you know, um, they're people who are my neighbors. They're people who live in my block. They're people I know personally from school. I have, um, you know, thankfully my I was born here, but I have other friends who you know, who came here illegally at such a young age. And you know, it's very sad to see that they're worried about, like, you know, not being able to find a job once they finish college, or you know, just as of now. um and it, one of my best friends, for example, she came here illegally, and she's going to college, and then she's like really scared on, she's like, but what's gonna happen after college, like how am I gonna get a job or stuff like that. So I do take it personally, because you know, it's people that I relate with. It's, you know, it's in my family. It's all around me. So yeah.
What do you say to people that would rebut you on that?
Well, I think to start off with, I think we just need to like address how like this, like the whole process of trying to come here legally or get papers, it's not easy, and it's also expensive. And you know, people that wait in line, you know, how long are people going to have to wait? People are in risk of, you know, um of dying, even if it's something, you know, um if it has to do something with like a gang in their community and from the country that they came from, or it's just like a war is going on. There's so many factors that play into this, and people are just desperate for a better life. They're
Yeah.
desperate for wanting to live. So I don't think I don't think it's fair to say to wait in line and come here legally, because they don't have that option always.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point. And that, that brings up a lot of points about asylum too, and the
Yeah.
misconceptions around asylum and why we have that in place. I know homelessness is another issue of concern for you.
Yeah.
What kind of work are you doing around homelessness, and why does that issue speak to you?
Homelessness was one of the issues that we were focusing on the most. We were looking on bills for our congressman to possibly sign. While we were looking at homelessness, we were co-sign. I mean, while we were looking through issues to choose bills from. We didn't want to undermine any issue because we talked about homelessness, um, foster care, something that I wasn't really just aware of. Um, we talked about gentrification. We talked about um, climate change. So we didn't want to undermine any issue, but we thought that homelessness was one of the issues that directly hit our community. So yeah, as of now, all of our work is still kind of like we don't know what we're gonna do yet because, like I said, COVID-19. But
Yeah.
we were for sure looking at a lot of bills. We were planning to volunteer at local food organizations that give food to the homeless. But yeah, all of that is on pause right now. So
Um, this brings up a point about resources, or the lack thereof from a state and federal level. Can you talk about some of the lack of resources that
yeah,
you see firsthand?
yeah, I think a recent example is the stimulus check that people received. It was for anyone who had a social security, and people who are immigrants who are working here are doing the jobs that are the most difficult and that other people don't want to do, such as farm work and anything related to construction. Those people
Who are also deemed essential right now.
yes, they're living in the U.S. What about them? That's my question. They're human. They're living here. They're also jobless. So I don't get why they shouldn't receive the stimulus check either. So that's a big example of my point. Another example is just like having access to healthcare. People are scared to go get a physical or just go if they're sick. They can't even go do that because they're scared of coming out in debt, or they just won't allow um, them to have a check-in or anything like that. So, yeah.
As somebody who is a leader in your community, does that affect you, and does that affect how effective you can be?
Oh, um, yeah. It does affect a lot of people in my community. It affects the it's hard because like sometimes I don't know what I can do for those people. I don't know what type of resource I can give to people who are undocumented. It's very hard, and that's like that goes back to my point of like where are the resources for them. Um, it's yeah, like even I don't even know how to answer the question. It's just
Sure.
it's just a really difficult issue that needs a lot of work on.
Sure. And we're not looking for answers here. This is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
And I think questions sometimes are more important than answers when it comes to a lot of these things. So the fact that you are asking those questions and you're out there trying to do the work on behalf of other people who potentially can't, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're doing it at your age is honorable.
It's a work in progress. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but I think we're on the right path.
And do people know enough about registering to vote and the importance of voting? And do they also understand the importance of down ticket voting, not just the president, but your senators, your local reps,
Mhm.
uh, your judges? Like, do people
Yeah.
see the importance all the way down?
I for when it comes to local elected officials, I think that's where we actually need a lot of work on because they're the ones who make the direct impact in our communities.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we've that for sure needs a lot of more work on because like I said, those are the ones that affect us directly. So there is work to be, that needs to be done there. But um, as far as like for voting for the president, I think it's getting people are willing to actually vote now, because unfortunately there's a lot of people who don't take advantage of that opportunity, because there's a lot who can't vote, um, people who are immigrants. So yeah.
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 I think that's smart that you're looking to things locally. How do you motivate other kids your age to see that? Like, how do you make that relatable to them?
Yeah, I think just getting involved in your community, and I think that already helps you become more aware of what's going on around you. For example, like me joining the youth advisory council, that opened my eyes on like that there's a lot of work to that needs to be done. So I think even if it's just participating in like a street cleanup, participating in like volunteering in a homeless shelter, it just really opens your eyes and makes you realize that there are so many people suffering around you. So yeah. Yeah.
Um, and bringing this back to the beginning too, have you now seen the research and the time and the effort and everything you're doing? Have you seen that affect your mother's life in a positive way?
Yeah, I for sure, she's told me, she's proud of me. Um, she's excited to see what change that I'll possibly do in the future, even if it's in such a small way. Yeah, she's excited to see what's to come for me. She knows that I'm like eager to make change, eager even in a big way, in a small way. Yeah, she's excited for me. Yeah.
So am
And then
I.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I have her support. She's never stopped me from doing anything I'm passionate about. So I'm really thankful for that. Yeah.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. Honestly, I think it's an inspiration to everybody your age and anybody really. I think getting involved is not easy. It takes work. It's
Yeah.
boring at times. It's
Yeah.
complicated. It's hurtful. Like there's a lot of, it's not always
For
pretty,
sure.
right? So
Yeah.
getting your hands dirty and doing that kind of good work is really important. So
Yeah.
I admire that and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.